Oh, sorry.
So, hi, I'm Janie Sabino. I work at Mass Law Reform Institute. And these first few slides are just to introduce us to you all. I see a lot of friends in the participants, but some of you may not know. MLRI, as it's called, provides statewide advocacy and leadership in advancing laws and policies, working to secure economic, racial, and social justice for low-income people and communities. We act as both a statewide anti-poverty law center and a support center for legal services across the state and for community partners. We do state and legislative initiatives, administrative advocacy, class actions, trainings, coalition buildings, looking at the big picture, and then helping individual advocates in the small picture. And we manage online informational legal services, Mass Legal Help, and Mass Legal Services. And I really recommend Mass Legal Help to many of you, which has a wide range of information around child support and domestic violence and housing issues and many things that the people you work with face. We work on several substantive law areas. I won't read them through, but as you can see, they're the things that many of the people you work with, and for people who live in poverty, they have this whole range of issues. And any one person probably has food insecurity issues and housing law. And one of the reasons we're so invested in this broadband is that's how you get telehealth now. That's how victims of domestic violence connect with the courts through Zoom. That's how you can sign up for benefits. This is how people are going to have to access the wide range of resources. And so that's why this broadband is so important. I'll turn it back.
So we're here today about the Emergency Broadband Benefit. It's a program, a new FCC program for low-income households. It was provided in the 2020 COVID-19 Relief Act, where Congress provided $3.2 billion, reserved it for a temporary discount monthly internet access benefit or a discount, and a one-time discount for eligible devices for qualifying households. This discount is paid directly to the internet provider, and it's limited to monthly internet services and, like I said, a one-time device discount. The application will start on May 12th. So they'll start accepting applications as of May 12th. So that's why we wanted to start to get the news out now, because it is a temporary benefit. We wanted to make sure people got on as early as possible. And so what is broadband? I think I wanted to start sort of make sure we're all on the same page and sort of understand this benefit to the full extent. So broadband is really internet access at a higher speed and a more reliable connection than dial-up. So if you're of a certain age, you can remember dial-up, where it would make you pause in a way that was sort of like a line and you could get disconnected. You can Google some of the noises if you haven't heard it. But it is, and so basically broadband means like access to the internet at a higher speed. And you can get access through a variety of ways: wireless, cable, DSL, satellite, fiber optics, if it's available in your area. And then what does it mean to be high speed? So according to the FCC, they created this standard back in 2015, which says at a minimum, it has to be 25 megabytes per second to download anything from the internet, and 3 megabytes per second if you're going to upload something to the internet to qualify as high speed. People nowadays, knowing all that we have to do in the internet and with remote learning and different devices happening at the same time, many have questioned whether 25 megabytes per second is sufficient as a minimum standard for high speed. And then we're going to talk about fixed versus mobile services. So a fixed service is really an internet provided to your home or a single location. So through your cable network or through optics or DSL, it's really at a single location and not being able to move to other places. Where our mobile service is where you can access the internet sort of anywhere through Wi-Fi, through your phone. So when we discuss services and plans that you can look at, you're going to be looking at fixed and mobile services. And who runs the Emergency Broadband, or EBB? Like I said, it was funded by the Consolidated Appropriations Act of the COVID-19 Act, and it's $3.2 billion. It was Congress created this fund. It was, and then the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, FCC, created the program. So they created all the rules and regulations regarding the program, and then the program is actually implemented by Usac, the Universal Service Administrative Company, which many of you may know already, is that because they administer the Lifeline program. And EBB will use the National Verifier, an online application system and database, also used for Lifeline to take applications and determine eligibility. But the consumers are going to get their internet service directly from an internet service provider, or ISP, who is participating and has been approved by Usac or the FCC. And they are still adding people to that list. So how much is the EBB discount and what is it? It's a monthly, up to $50 per month discount on your internet service and any associated equipment rentals. And if there's an enhanced tribal benefit, if you reside on a tribal land, you don't have to be a member of a tribe, but if you reside on a tribal land, you can get $75 per month. And then for devices, it's a one-time discount of up to $100 for a laptop, tablet, or desktop computer that you would have to have, the customer would have to provide a co-payment of at least $10, but no more than $50. And this device discount is not provided by all providers. Sorry, and what services are covered by EBB, right? So we were talking, it's for your internet, and as many of you may already receive it, you may have bundled services with your phone, internet access, and cable TV. And so you can apply this $50 discount to the cost of bundle services, excluding your TV services. So anything other, voice, texting, or associated equipment, you can cover. It will not cover your TV services. Like I said, it also provides equipment rental discounts. So if you're paying a monthly fee for your router, or modem, or hotspots developments, the $50 benefit can cover that as well. And if you're already an existing customer, it can cover sort of any upgrades, and you would have to discuss that with the specific provider. And how long does EBB run? So it is a temporary program, even though many advocates are hoping that we can push the government to make it a more long-lasting program. But right now, like I said, there's $3.2 billion reserved for this program. So this program will end when the funds are all exhausted, or 6 months after the end of the public health emergency declared by the Secretary of Health and Human Services. So whichever comes first. And so now we'll talk about how you get EBB, and our partner will talk about eligibility.
Also just as a reminder, we will be sending out these slides. I know there's a lot of information, and also feel free to put questions in the chat at any point and we'll get to them at the end. So the first step, of course, is checking eligibility for EBB. So there are kind of two ways in which people can qualify for EBB. So firstly, there's income-based eligibility. So households are eligible for EBB if they are at or below 135% of the federal poverty level, or if they experienced a significant loss of income since the COVID-19 pandemic began. And we'll talk more about what significant loss of income means in a bit. The other main way in which households can qualify is through participation in an eligible benefits program. And it's really important to note that only one household member has to be participating in any of these programs in order to qualify for EBB. So I won't read the whole list because we're going to go through in detail later how people can prove their eligibility. But if any household member is participating in one of these programs, they would be eligible for EBB. And there's also kind of a subset of this, which is if a household meets the criteria for an existing low-income or COVID-19 program through a provider, they could also qualify for EBB that way if it's been approved by the FCC. So folks might have heard of like Comcast Internet Essentials, for example, programs like that. If a household qualifies for those, they might be able to qualify for EBB as well as certain tribal programs, which you can see here as well. So substantial loss of income, which is one of the ways in which households can qualify for EBB, is particularly if it's related to a job loss or furlough. So if someone lost their job or was furloughed since the COVID-19 pandemic began, they can qualify for EBB if their total income is under $99,000 for a single filer or $198,000 for a joint filer, tax filer. And that's a pretty high threshold, I imagine, for a lot of the folks that we work with. So the key component here is job loss or furlough. And then what is a household for EBB? So folks who work in different programs might know that household rules can differ between the programs, but for EBB, a household is essentially a group of people who live together and share money. So that means that people living in multi-unit dwellings like apartment buildings or nursing homes can qualify for EBB as separate households. And we'll talk more later about how they can sort of prove their status as an independent household. Note that people living in multi-unit dwellings like apartments have to be charged for their internet service in order to qualify for EBB. If the landlord or building manager or something pays for the internet, then they would not qualify for EBB. So now I'll pass it back to Virginia to talk about providers in Massachusetts.
Great. So not every provider, internet service provider, is enrolled in accepting the emergency broadband benefit. Like I said, it's going directly, the benefit goes directly to the provider, and they need to go through an application process with the FCC and Usac. Currently, there are 23 providers in Massachusetts who are offering either mobile services, internet services, or fixed internet services, and or providing a device. And so, like I said, not every provider is providing a device, but some are. So you're going to have to find the contact the providers in your area. So these are the providers who are currently providing fixed internet service. So that's from your home or one location. And they are FCC and Usac are still accepting applications for providers, so please continue to check. This list will hopefully expand as the program unfolds. So, you know, even while we were putting this together, 2 more providers were added to the list. So just be careful, you know, just be on top of it and think, if not now, hopefully later. And these are the providers who are providing mobile services in the area. So it's a longer list, and then you can see that there's some providers who are doing both mobile and fixed. I think Verizon and T-Mobile are the 2, and then some are providing are also lifeline providers. And so these are the programs who are offering the devices. So you can see not all 23 of the providers in Massachusetts are offering devices, and that's for a variety of reasons. So you have to get you can only use the $100 device discount to the provider who's also providing the internet service. So you cannot use it, you know, kind of shop around and get a device from someplace else and then get the discount. It has to be from the same provider who's giving you the internet service as well. And so the FCC and Usac both have sites where they are providing information about the list. It will also be provided in the application process, we'll talk about later, but you can go to these 2 sites to find out who's providing a provider in your area. We also provide some information about a national site that provides some information as well about what providers are in your area. And so things to consider when you're looking for a provider and a plan. Coverage in your area is number one, right? So you need to find a provider that can provide you the service where you live and where you work, and that's going to work for you. You're also going to have to think about your personal needs. So the number of devices you want to connect to the internet, which talks about bandwidth, and then how quickly you need your device to respond to you, which relates to speed, and then whether you need a device or not. So these are all things that you need to consider when looking for a provider and kind of shopping for one of their plans. Past and existing customers of participating providers are still eligible. So EBB has provided that you do not have to worry about past due or any bills that are in collection. That should not bar you from being an eligible customer with a provider through EBB. And now we're going to talk about how to apply. That's still me, sorry. I forgot it's still me. So there's 3 ways to apply for the Emergency Broadband Benefit. The first, and what FCC encourages people, is to go through enroll with the provider. So once you've selected a provider, contact them and see what the application process is with them. It often will save you an additional step. But you can also apply online with Usac. That application online is available in English and in Spanish. And then you can apply through with a written application, also available in English and Spanish, mailing it directly to Usac. They have instructions in 8 additional languages, but the application itself is only available in English and Spanish. So when you enroll with a provider, like I said, you find the provider in your area, you contact them directly, and then they can assist you, usually in person, using the National Verifier Service Provider Portal or through an FCC alternative verification process to determine your eligibility. The provider will then transmit your information to the National Lifeline Accountability Database, NLAD, and then they can see if you're eligible, confirm your eligibility, and sign you up. If you're applying online with Usac, you want to go to getemergencybroadband.org. You're going to complete the online application, which will require you to create an online user and password. You'll upload any supporting documents if necessary on this website, and then you'll have to initial 3 consent statements and sign that application. Once you've completed everything, you'll receive an application ID number, and then Usac will review your application and make a decision during business hours. So you may find out immediately if you apply online during business hours. If not, you'll have to sign back in using your username and password and check your status. So there could be information about needing to upload additional documents at that stage to confirm your eligibility. And you can also apply by mail through Usac. That again is a print application, and there you want to complete as much of the application as you possible, which means completing the written application, providing the household worksheet, and providing any proof of eligibility, and you can send it to that address. You want to provide an email address and potentially an alternative email address so that if there's any issues with your application, they can contact you directly and not through snail mail. And then Lifeline customers. Lifeline is a federal program, I think we've mentioned it a few times, that offers lower monthly cost of phone and internet services. And so it offers up to $9.25, which hasn't changed up to a bill. So if you are already a Lifeline customer, you are eligible for the Emergency Broadband Benefit automatically. However, you still have to opt in. So you have to you can opt in with your existing provider or shop around for a different provider and tell them that you're a Lifeline customer and you'd like to enroll. And you can leverage both your Lifeline benefits and your EBB benefits. So you can continue to get both, utilize both of these benefits. It's not one or the other. And say if you are already in an existing low or income or COVID-19 program provided by one of these internet service providers, you may not need to separately apply for the emergency broadband benefit. And like Lifeline customers, you may be able to opt in. So you just want to contact your participating provider, say that 5 times fast, and see if you have to do anything additionally other than affirming that you would like to opt in. And so some tips, I think I've already discussed some of them, but the first number one tip is if you can apply through a participating provider, that will reduce some steps. I know I'm going to stumble over that 2 words. You cannot use a PO box for your residential address, but you can use a description of their physical address. And you can have a different mailing address from the address in which you're getting the services or you require the services. A social security number is not required to participate in the EBB benefit. And like I said, you'd want to submit an email address if you're submitting a paper application. And to make sure you kind of get the fastest reply, you want to try to submit your online applications during Usac working hours. And now Aparna is going to talk about supporting documents that you would need to prove your eligibility.
Beautiful. So yeah, I won't read through all of this because again, we're going to send out the slides. So I'll just provide a quick overview of supporting documents that folks need to submit. So firstly, the application will ask for proof of ID, and there are a number of options, but the main thing I want to emphasize is that households do not need to have any member have a social security number in order to qualify for EBB. That being said, if a household member through which the household is qualifying, so for example, if the household is qualifying through participation in SNAP, if that household member does have a social security number, that would speed up the process, but there are a number of other identifying documents that can be provided to qualify for EBB. Next, for proof of address, this is really simple in the online application. There will be a mapping tool as part of the application where households can select where they live on the map, and that will serve as sufficient proof of address. For the mail-in application, households will need to submit additional documentation like a utility bill, driver's license, a map showing where they live in order to get EBB. But I hope that all of this is demonstrating that the online application is probably going to be significantly simpler than the mail-in application. For proof of household, this is for households to prove that they're independent from other units that might be living in their building. Folks filling out the online application don't really need to worry because the sort of household worksheet, which is how Usac determines if someone's a separate household, is already built into the application. But this does mean for mail-in applications, again, households would need to submit this separate household worksheet, which will be on that Get Emergency Broadband website. So as we discussed before, the main buckets through which households can prove EBB eligibility is either income-based or based on participation in qualifying benefits. So as we mentioned, households are eligible if their income is at or below 135% of the federal poverty level. So to qualify in this way, households will need to submit some sort of documentation to prove that their income is at or below 135% of the federal poverty level. And there are a number of options which you can see here. And I guess before I go on, so all of these different next few slides talking about proofs of eligibility is kind of an either or. A household can prove themselves to be eligible through income or through participation in benefits. They don't have to qualify in both ways. So next, if a household has experienced a substantial loss of income due to a job loss or furlough, they should submit a furlough notice or a layoff notice, or proof that they applied for unemployment or are receiving unemployment. In addition, since there's an income threshold here, households need to submit a document showing that they're below these 99,000 or 198,000 income threshold. So I think the simplest way here would be if a household is getting unemployment, submitting their unemployment benefit statement would kind of check off both boxes. It would prove that they lost their job, and it would also show that their income is below the threshold for EBB. And now we're going to talk through kind of each of the individual programs, but I won't go into too much detail for the sake of time. But in general, to show participation in programs, households need to submit official documentation that says the benefit qualifying person's first and last name, the name of the program, for example, SNAP, the name of the government agency that runs the program, and this document has to be issued within the last 12 months. So starting with SNAP, households can submit a benefits approval letter or verification letter, and pretty much any mailing from DTA, the state agency that runs SNAP, that was issued in the last year and has the person's name on it. And how households can get these documents is they can take a picture of something that they received in the mail, or they can download documents from DTA Connect, or call the DTA assistance line for a verification letter. Next, so households are eligible for EBB if a member is participating in the National School Lunch Program or participated in the 2019-2020 school year. And households, so some people may be familiar with the term CEP, but basically the community eligibility provision is there in schools where all students get free meals through this provision. And in those cases, households don't need to submit any additional proofs. They would just need to select their school from a drop-down menu. But for non-CEP schools, households do need to submit some sort of proof that they're participating in the National School Lunch Program, such as an award letter from their school. And just to note, I know most if not all students in Massachusetts are currently getting free meals, but that's not necessarily through the CEP provision. So they just have to make sure that they're in a CEP school, not in any school that's giving free meals right now through separate waiver. For college students who are Pell Grant recipients, all students either should have received or will receive an email from the Department of Education about EBB, and that email will be sufficient proof that they can just download and submit when they apply for EBB. But students can also take a screenshot from their studentaid.gov dashboard in order to show that they're Pell Grant recipients. And I'll go through this very quickly. For veterans, pension and survivors benefits and SSI, again, a benefits verification letter or really any mailing that has the person's name, the program name, the name of the agency, and an issue date within the last year would prove their eligibility for EBB. Households should not need to submit any documentation if they're participating in Medicaid or most types of mass health, or if they're participating in federal public housing assistance, because these programs are automatically verified through the National Verifier. And just some tips, households should make sure that their documents are clear, but they can just take a picture and submit a document. It doesn't need to be like an official PDF or anything like that, as long as the document is clear. And if people need help, particularly people with disabilities need help with their application, there is going to be an emergency broadband support center, and the number is here on your screen. In very limited cases, the center can help people apply over the phone, to my understanding, particularly for people with disabilities. But in most cases, while there's no phone application for EBB, the support center can still provide assistance with things like figuring out what documents you need to submit, or figuring out what would be a good proof of ID, etc. And then once people apply, as Virginia mentioned earlier, if folks apply online at getemergencybroadband.org, during business hours, they might just get their application decision kind of a few minutes after submitting, so they could just keep the screen open. But if Usac needs additional documentation, I believe they'll email families with that, and then applicants can log back into the portal at a different time to check their application status if they're not notified immediately. But then also a reminder that folks can apply through providers, and that should be in most cases done in person. So I'll pass it back to Virginia to talk about enrolling with a provider.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. So once you are notified that you're eligible for the EBB benefit, you just contact the provider and say that you'd like to sign up for whatever selected plan you have decided that works best for your family or for you individually. The provider will verify your eligibility, and then it is your responsibility, or the customer's responsibility, that if you no longer qualify for EBB, that you should notify that provider within 30 days, sorry. And we did want to note that a provider may require a deposit. set up a setup fee or sort of installation fee or a one-time equipment fee, and EBB does not cover those one-time expenses. And so when will EBB end? So as I discussed before, it's when the $3.2 billion are exhausted, or 6 months after the Department of Health and Human Services declares an end to the pandemic, whichever comes first. So how will you know? So you can track the progress yourself if you're so inclined to do so. Usac will publish a tracker on its website that will display sort of the number of households enrolled into EBB and how many people are enrolling each week, the total amount of reimbursements claimed to date, and it should provide some kind of idea about how long the program should last with that kind of disbursement, monthly disbursements. And then what happens when it ends? So the providers must inform any customer receiving the discount that this would be the last billing cycle or partial benefit given for that site before the program runs out. So the provider must provide notice, and that's very important. They must also inform customers about the cost of broadband after the program ends, and sort of and then the provider must have an affirmative, or the customer must affirmatively opt in to continue the services and get charged whatever fees. So you always there has to be an agreement for the customer to pay anything above what the discount would cover. And so this is even true about opting in. So say you're an existing customer and then you get the EBB benefit. And now the EBB benefit has been exhausted. You're still going to have to opt in to continue the services. If you don't proactively opt in, the benefit will expire and your services will be terminated. And so we do provide some resources about the EBB program. So there's Get Emergency Broadband, which we have mentioned time and time again over this session. They have also an outreach toolkit. So if you are somebody, and there's a link there, so if you are somebody who wants to get information more out to the folks, you can have some materials there. It's available in multiple languages. There's also a link to FCC website and the Mass Department of Telecommunications and Communications and Cable. We provided a link there and their consumer hotline. So if you're having any issues with providers, here is another place that maybe can provide you some assistance. And then we provided some national organizations that you may want to tap into that talk about sort of the digital divide and some broad advocacy around the issue and information. So there's a lot about digital literacy and sort of and explaining sort of in simple terms what's happening with broadband access. So we provided a number of groups there. Oh, I'm sorry, can you go back for the last one, Aparna? Because Broadband Now is a website that helps you locate a provider and your service and provide some literacy and information about sort of how to measure your need and finding the best plan that works for you. And so as I said, FCC is really doing, hoping to do a lot of outreach. And the goal is for every eligible household to take advantage of this benefit. And so there's an outreach tool kit that provides information and marketing materials. So we just wanted to provide you some information about that. And then this is our contact information. So like I said, I'm Virginia Benson. I am the Race Equity and Justice Attorney. Aparna Raghu is our AmeriCorps legal advocate. And Jamie Sabino is our family law and CLAVIC attorney. So these are our email addresses. We're more than happy to field any questions or contact you if you're interested in any of these issues. And I forgot to provide my intern's name is Arthi Gopalan, and I apologize for not providing her last name. And so next we will discuss our Q&A. So I'd love to introduce Rebecca Lockhart. She's an outreach specialist with the Consumer and Government Affairs Bureau within the Federal Communications Commission, FCC, and she has graciously agreed to come here today and field all your questions. I know we have a number of questions in our chat, and so we can, Arthi, I think you can start there, and then if you would like to ask a question, you can raise your hand as well.
Yeah, okay, so we got a few questions from the chat, and so I'll just start, I guess, in order of where we got them. I think one of them was answered during the presentation, so I think we're good on that. And then, so I guess for the first one, somebody asked, can roommates who do not share income and expenses each apply separately?
So first of all, thank you all so much for including me on this meeting. You guys did such a great presentation. I just love that you guys are engaging with your community and have such a high attendance here today. So thanks for that. But to answer the question, yes, you could apply separately because that is how they would define a household if they have a separate income. So you would just need to fill out that household worksheet each person would need to fill out their own application in that household worksheet to determine if they would be eligible.
Okay, thank you. And so this person had two questions. Are there any citizenship requirements, and will providers be sharing this information about the program with existing customers through mail or email? What kind of outreach is being done at this time?
So the requirements for identification are listed on the Usac website. And I apologize, I'm trying to look it up as we speak, but let me get to, could you just ask how they ask that again? What is citizenship?
Yeah.
I don't think that is necessarily required to prove. You don't have to prove that. You don't have to give a social security number. There's an option on the form to fill in the last 4 digits of your social security number. And the reason they do that is it just allows their process to kind of go quicker because they are linked in their database to other benefit programs. So if you put in that information, they can kind of run your application quicker. But citizenship is not required to be proved. I think a tax ID would be one of the qualifying bits of information you could show. So hopefully that would be something that someone is able to provide. And the second question, could you please repeat?
Yeah, of course, yeah. So I think these are kind of related to each other, but will providers be sharing this information about the program with existing customers through mail or email, and what kind of outreach is being done at this time?
So I can't speak to what providers are doing from the FCC standpoint. We don't really know. I mean, I would assume, just speaking from myself, that providers would of course want to alert their customers and potential customers about this program, because if someone is a new subscriber, they would then, have the option to opt into that service after the EBB part ends. So it would, I don't see why people wouldn't be promoting this. So on our end at the FCC, we're doing outreach. I know Usac is doing outreach, and then we're really relying on our partners to help out and do outreach as well. We still have partnership sign up available on our website, which is fcc.gov/broadband benefit, where anyone in the community can sign up to receive information from us that we release on the program. And of course, we have our outreach toolkits that you all mentioned that are online, that are free. There's a lot of downloadable material on there. And just so you know, we do other outreach from the FCC on things like robocalls and stuff like that. And we have these downloadable tip cards that are online that you can print out yourself. But I mean, we recognize that a lot of people are working with small budgets. I mean, ourselves included in that. But, if you had a community center where you wanted to have, say, 50 flyers printed out, that is something that you could contact me directly, and I could work with you to get those printed from our agency and mailed out to you.
I just wanted to add something about the immigration status question really quickly, which is that EBB does not count for public charge and should not have any impact on folks' immigration status. It's not a cash benefit that's going to households, and I'm not an expert on this, not an immigration lawyer, but the EBB definitely should not be counting for public charge. And so if you work with immigrant families who might be scared of enrolling this benefit, I hope that is sort of helpful reassurance. The money doesn't even go to households, it goes directly to providers.
Okay, so we can move on to the next question from the chat. So for immigrant families, this application seems complex and difficult. Somerville has supports for RAFT and other applications, but this is an additional demand on staff. Is there funding to support assistance? So
the funding that Congress put towards this program is solely going for the broadband service. There wasn't a separate part that went out really for the outreach aspect of it. There is some budgetary amount for administrative and so forth, but that's not something I'm completely familiar with. But the majority of the funding of the program is for the benefit itself. So to better understand that, you would have to really understand the whole order. And if you do have further questions that you want to know more specific details, but in general, we don't have, we really rely on outreach partners to get the information out, and just community grassroots organizations where people will go, like your center, to help out with specific cases.
Okay, and are the income thresholds related to gross income or adjusted gross income?
So I know it's based off federal poverty guidelines, so I can't speak from my own knowledge whether that is, which one of those that is. I did look online on the federal poverty guidelines, and it's not even clear from what I'm looking at. So I can't really give a better answer to that. I'm sorry. But if you go on the Emergency Broadband Benefit page, there is a highlighted, the word federal poverty guidelines is highlighted. You can click on that or just go to that site on your own, and you can see the breakdown of state, what the income levels are. So Bethany, thank you for putting that in there. It's kind of convoluted. If you go to that site, it doesn't really say if it's adjusted or gross income, but it does give a threshold number.
Okay, and can undocumented folks use their work permit card as a form of ID? Some clients have ITINs, but others only have their work permit card. Also, you said certain types of mass health. Most undocumented families I work with have mass health limited. Is that qualifying?
From what I see on Usac site, I don't see that listed. I just see ITIN, but I encourage you to contact Usac directly, because that is where the application, they are the ones, putting together the application process. They could probably give you a better answer to that, because you might be able to qualify through a different way. Say if you already have Lifeline, you wouldn't have to worry about providing any of that information. So it's really a case-by-case basis when you're applying.
And I'll just add,
oh God.
Sorry, I think we might be adding the same thing, which is that if a household has a qualifying dependent who might be participating in SNAP, for example, households can qualify that way. So only one household member needs to meet the criteria in order to qualify.
And if you are eligible for Mass Health Essentials, then you would be eligible, you would meet the income eligibility requirements. So if they can't verify you through Medicaid, then you could submit information about your income as well.
Right. So yeah, I would just encourage people, like you all are saying already, don't let those kind of qualifying things on the list hinder you from trying to apply. Because if you're eligible for other programs and already signed, you don't have to already be signed up for them, but if you already are, then that might make your process a little bit simpler when you're enrolling.
Okay, is May 12th when the application will be available, or is it the deadline?
It's when it will be available. There's no deadline. It will just be running until the money runs out, or until an official end of the pandemic is declared. And it would be 6 months after that declaration of the end of the pandemic.
Okay, and could a student who lives in the same household as the parents get the benefit apart from the parents if the parents are enrolled in EBB?
Not if that student is a dependent or in the same household. It's one per household. So unless they could prove that they were a independent economic unit, they would have to go and try to fill out that household worksheet.
Okay, and somebody was asking, how do I get a snapshot of how many in a single Massachusetts community like Somerville are not connected or need appropriate speed internet?
In terms of,
I think you muted somebody.
if somehow
Yeah,
I muted. Okay.
Okay.
There are coverage maps of broadband on the FCC webpage. I can look that up and send it to you afterwards. I don't know if it's directly linked from the EBB page or not, but the FCC does have that information. But I think the best way to really figure it out is to go to the broadband providers in your state and then contact them and see if they offer service in your area, because that way, you know, that's probably easier than trying to look at a map and determine if your area is covered.
Okay, somebody said on the USAC website, it only indicates that proof of a federal Pell Grant for the current year is required as documentation. Will the individual providers require different documentation to prove a student is receiving a federal Pell Grant?
I haven't seen the application itself, you know, so that would, I can't really, I'm having trouble trying to figure that one out. I think that would just be a supporting document that you would have to show when you're filling out the application, that you have received whatever information you have when you received the grant.
Okay, and then somebody says, I have some confusion about the $50 or $75 one time only or per month. Can you please once again go over how much the program will pay per household and for how long? Okay,
sure. So the benefit is up to $50 per month on broadband service. And that is a monthly benefit. And if you live on a tribal land, it's up to $75 per month. And again, that's a monthly thing toward, or monthly benefit that you will see credited on your bill. The one-time benefit is the up to $100 on a device. And that would have to be purchased through a provider participating in that part of the program. And as was stated before, not every provider participating in EBB is offering the device discount, but the benefit is a monthly benefit, the $50 and $75 part of it. It just, the 75 is just for people on tribal lands.
Okay, and I think this is the last question from the chat, but correct me if I missed somebody's question. Even if there's one internet discount, 2 discounts could apply.
If there's one internet discount, 2 discounts can apply. I'm not really understanding.
Yeah, I was.
So if someone could just clarify that.
Yeah, I think that was Rochelle who asked that actually. If you could.
I just wanted to clarify, even if there's one internet account, more than one discount could apply.
Oh, I'm sorry. I misread your question. Sorry.
If there's more than one, if there's, for example, roommates where they all are, they may be sharing housing, but they have different, support themselves separately, but they share one internet account. It seems like more than one discount can apply.
In that case, only one discount would be applied to that one bill. Now, if a second person could prove that they're part of a second household and wanted to apply and sign up for a additional broadband service, I believe that is something, but only one discount can be applied per broadband service bill. So, you know, if it was just me and my roommate and we both are using the same internet and we pay the same bill, to, even though we're separate entities paying on the same bill, it's still one bill. So only one discount can be applied per bill, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I'm gonna read out one more question that we just got. And also, if anybody wants to like say their question, you can raise your hand and I can call on you. But this question was, for people who don't have internet service now, could they apply for internet service and apply for EBB simultaneously?
Yes, absolutely. You can be a new customer, you could be a past customer, even if you have a past due or outstanding bill, you can apply. Or you can, you know, someone you're already getting service with, or a new provider.
Okay, I think those were the questions from the chat. But if anybody wants to, I don't know if everybody knows how to like use the raise your hand icon, but or you could unmute yourself and ask also, because I think we have some more time for Q&A.
I just wanted to make a few points also. Usac has stressed, if you're doing the mail-in application, try to make sure you include everything that you can just to get a quicker response. And please do not send original documentation, send copies of your documents. You don't want to send off your original document of any kind. Another thing we like to just alert people of is scams. I'm sure that scammers follow the trends as it's already been going on with the COVID-19 pandemic. All of the scammers, whether it be about vaccines or what have you, they're going to latch on to things like this that are happening and try to scam people. So we just want you to be aware of that. And you know, if someone calls you out of the blue and says, hey, I'm offering EBB, give me all your information, that's a red flag that that's a scam. So just be on the lookout for that. And when you contact your providers, make sure you're using a number that you got from their official webpage or from your bill, or something that you know is a legitimate source. Not just you found a flyer on the wall and you see, you know, I mean, although we do have flyers so that have FCC and legitimate information on it. But if you just find a random number, don't just call, you know, make sure it's a legitimate source that you're contacting whenever you're giving out information, whether it be for EBB or just in general.
Thank you. Rebecca, we actually did have one more question, which is, what would be the criteria for someone to be able to get support via a phone application? I know that it was mentioned at the FCC webinar that people with disabilities might be able to complete a phone application if they can't do the online version. Is there any similar phone application for those who might have language barriers to completing the online application, for example?
So I know Usac said they have up to, they have a translator service. So you call into their call center and they have, I believe, up to 200 language translators to assist with the application process that way. Because that, like you guys said before, the applications are only in English and Spanish, but translators are available to assist.
I think there was one more thing in the chat, just verifying current customers can access this benefit.
Yes, current customers can. You would just need to call your provider if that's how you want to enroll. You can go through any of the enrollment procedures that were explained earlier, but the easiest way may be to just contact your provider, especially if you're enrolled in a low-income program already. Someone mentioned Internet Essentials, so I'll use that as an example. So if you if you are receiving Internet Essentials, you're automatically qualified for EBB, but you will not automatically receive it. You will have to contact your provider and let them know, I wish to be enrolled in this program.
Okay, with that, I think we're going to move on from the Q&A, but we will also be following up, as we said before, via email. So if anyone, and then you have our email addresses. We'll be following up with you via email, and then you can email us back if you have any further questions. So I'll just pass it to Virginia to close us off and send us into the next portion of this meeting.
Great. Well, first, again, thank you so much, Rebecca, for coming today and answering our questions. And for everybody who has participated today, we really appreciate your time and attention today. And I hope that this information has been useful and that we can spread the word. And so please feel free to continue to ask us questions and use our contact information. We really do believe this is a way for us to ensure access to justice and racial justice within Massachusetts. So we are going to, if you're interested in next steps and talking about the digital divide and other issues about how we can do it better in Massachusetts, we're going to invite you to some breakout rooms and then facilitate those and then come back. But this is sort of the end of the presentation regarding the emergency broadband benefit. And so unless people have some additional questions, we'll be